Tonight, I'm going to try something that might take much longer than I expected. I'm standing on an island completely covered with trees. Small trees, huge trees, trees hidden behind rocks, trees growing on hills, and probably a few trees that I won't even notice until I think I'm finished. But before this video ends, I want every single one of them gone. So get comfortable, turn the volume down a little, and if you're already in bed, you don't need to stay awake to see whether I actually finish. That's my problem. Your only job tonight is to relax. Before chopping anything, I want to see exactly what I've gotten myself into. From here, the island doesn't look that big, but that's usually how these ideas start. You look at a forest and think, yeah, I can clear that. Then a few minutes later, you discover another entire section behind a mountain. So I'm starting from the beach. I'll work around the outside of the island first, and then slowly move toward the center. That way, hopefully, I won't miss anything. Here we go, tree number 1. A few swings, and tree number 1 is down. Only the rest of the forest to go. There's something strangely satisfying about this. One tree disappears, then another, and suddenly a tiny empty clearing begins to form. At the moment, though, the forest still looks endless. I've barely moved from the beach, and I've already noticed that some of these trees are much thicker than the others. They take considerably longer to cut, so my original plan of casually walking around the island might have been slightly optimistic. Still, we continue. One tree, then another, a few more hits, and there goes another one. There's also a hill just ahead of me. I can't see what's behind it yet. I'm hoping it's just coastal, but considering my luck, it's probably another forest. Okay, we've reached the top, and yes, that is definitely more forest. A lot more forest. From this height, I can finally see how big the island actually is. There's a dense section on one side, another group of trees near the rocks, and what looks like an entire second forest in the center. So this challenge just became much bigger. But strangely, I don't mind, because this is exactly the kind of task you can slowly disappear into. No rushing, no complicated objective. Just one tree, then another, and eventually an entire forest becomes an empty field. So from this point onward, I'm going to slow things down. If you came here to relax, you can close your eyes whenever you want. I'll keep working. We're starting with this group beside the water. The ocean is right behind me. You can probably hear the waves underneath the tree. There goes another tree, and another. I'm trying to keep the movement simple now. Walk forward, stop, swing, collect the wood, move to the next tree. There's a nice rhythm to it. Walk, stop, swing, collect, and continue. Sometimes repetitive games are surprisingly peaceful. You don't need to think very hard. You know exactly what needs to happen next. There's always another tree in front of you, and once that tree is gone, you simply find the next one. The clearing behind me is becoming noticeably larger now. A few minutes ago, I couldn't even see the beach. Now sunlight reaches almost all the way through. We're moving deeper into the island now. The trees are closer together here, so I barely need to walk. One comes down, I turn slightly, and there's another one waiting. Another one. And another. There's no need to count anymore. I tried counting at the beginning. That lasted about 2 minutes. Just keep going until there aren't any left. The sound changes slightly with these larger trees. Deeper, slower, a few extra swings, and then silence for a moment before I start the next one. If you're trying to sleep, just listen to that rhythm. The wind, the ocean in the distance, a few birds, the axe and footsteps through the grass. Nothing important is going to happen suddenly. You're not going to miss anything. I'll still be here cutting trees. I think we might be approaching halfway. It's difficult to tell from ground level, but the difference behind me is huge. Where there used to be thick forest, there's now a wide open view toward the ocean. It feels almost strange. You spend so much time looking at individual trees that you don't notice the larger change happening. Then you turn around, and the landscape looks completely different. We'll keep following this line toward the mountain. One tree, then the next. No hurry. This tree is taking a little longer. One more hit, and there it goes. Now the smaller one beside it. Gone. And the next. We've reached one of the quietest parts of the island. The wind will keep blowing. The night will keep getting quieter. There's no rush now. No timer. No goal. No final task. Just rest. Let your eyes stay closed. Let the sounds fade into the background. And enjoy the quiet island. Good night.